Millionaire first noticed the mother quietly placing the baby milk back on the shelf. It wasn't the act itself that struck him, was the hesitation. That small pause revealed the storm she was trying to hide from the world. Awareness often begins in these subtle moments, the ones most people rush past without a second thought. In a busy world where everyone is wrapped in their own worries, it takes intention to truly see others. Yet, when we choose to slow down and pay attention, we open the door to compassion. We start to recognize that behind every quiet struggle, there's a story waiting to be understood. And sometimes, simply noticing becomes the first step toward making a meaningful difference. Because the truth is, empathy isn't loud or dramatic. It's often born in the quiet spaces where another person's pain meets our willingness to care. What struck him even more as he followed her was the realization that her struggle wasn't unusual, it was simply unseen. So many people carry burdens they never speak about, doing their best to hold things together while the world keeps moving around them. This mother wasn't asking for help, wasn't making a scene. She was just quietly choosing between her child's needs and the limits of her circumstances. And that's the truth for countless families who appear fine on the outside but are fighting private battles every day. When we understand that hardships don't always look dramatic, we begin to soften. We learn to approach others with gentleness instead of judgment. Recognizing hidden struggles doesn't mean we must fix everything. It simply means we acknowledge that everyone is carrying something. And from that understanding, compassion becomes not just possible, but natural. He watched her walk toward the exit. The millionaire couldn't shake the feeling that his resources meant nothing if they didn't serve someone beyond himself. Wealth, after all, is more than numbers. In an account, it's a tool, and its true value is revealed only when it's used with intention. He realized that having more doesn't make a person more important. It simply gives them more opportunities to lift someone else. In that moment, the distance between their worlds didn't matter. What mattered was the simple truth that privilege carries a quiet responsibility, not an obligation rooted in guilt, but in humanity. When we find ourselves in a position to help, even in small ways, choosing to act can turn a passing encounter into a turning point for someone else. Sometimes generosity isn't about grand gestures. It's about being willing to step in when it counts. As he finally approached her outside the store, the barriers between them, wealth, status, circumstance, seemed to fade. What remained was simply one human being reaching out to another. We often assume that people from different walks of life have nothing in common. Yet moments like these remind us how artificial those divisions really are. Compassion doesn't check bank accounts, and kindness doesn't require matching backgrounds. When we allow ourselves to connect beyond labels and assumptions, we discover that empathy is one of the most powerful equalizers we have. The millionaire wasn't stepping into her world as a savior. He was stepping in as a fellow person who cared enough to bridge the gap. And sometimes, that willingness to cross the invisible lines we draw between each other becomes the very thing that restores someone's hope, dignity, or strength. But what the millionaire didn't expect was how one small decision to follow her, to ask if she was okay, to step in with kindness, would create a ripple far larger than the moment itself. When he offered to buy the milk, it wasn't just a purchase. It was a gesture that reminded her she wasn't invisible, that someone saw her effort and cared enough to lighten her load. Acts like these don't solve every problem, but they can shift the trajectory of someone's day, someone's confidence, even someone's belief in humanity. And the ripple doesn't stop there. Kindness inspires more kindness. The mother might one day pay it forward in her own way, and someone else might be moved to help because of the story he later shared. It's incredible how a single choice, small, quiet, almost ordinary, can echo far beyond its moment. In the end, what stayed with him wasn't the money he spent or the gesture itself, but the realization that moments like these define who we are far more than any financial milestone ever could. Success, he discovered, isn't measured in luxury or recognition. It's measured in the quiet ways we choose to show up for others. The world often teaches us to chase status, to accumulate, to stand out, but real fulfillment usually comes from leaning in, from noticing, from giving without expectation. As he walked away, he understood that every achievement feels hollow if it doesn't in some way make life better for someone else. And perhaps that's the real marker of a meaningful life, the impact we leave, not the wealth we keep. When we allow generosity and compassion to guide us, we redefine success into something deeply human, deeply lasting. Let's choose that kind of success.